Hello and welcome. We've got another of our interview series here. I'm Revolved with RunDiffusion, and I'm joined today by Lynn Cole, a fabulous community member of ours who's an incredible artist. And yeah, welcome. Glad to have you with us.
It is great to be here. I am so excited. I am so excited, Rev. This is amazing, and thank you for taking the time to come see me in my happy little imaginary studio that I've got going on here in the background in my impossibly geometric city.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. So, we've both decided to adorn ourselves with the virtual avatars. And yeah, Lynn, you've made an incredible VTuber model based on your artwork, your creations. I think that's absolutely incredible. And we'll go into that. We'll talk about kind of your process, how you made one. I think that VTubing and like this whole realm that's opening up with AI enabled creativity. It's going to be incredible soon, now, always, it is. And yeah, I'd love to just like maybe start people off, talk a little bit about yourself, how you got into AI art, and what your art looks like currently.
So, I've been working with different kinds of VTuber technology and different kinds of 3D animation for the last couple of years. And when AI came along, I was um, the first round of AI was in the face apps of the world,
Mm,
where they use a GAN, and what they're doing is, they're training on faces of people that use the app to make better pictures of everybody who uses the app, which
mm,
is pretty awesome.
mm-hmm,
Um, so I was really, really fascinated with initially using FaceApp as sort of a reference. There was this tool called Real Character Creator, and it has a plugin called Headshot. And what Headshot does is really, really neat. So, instead of using the AI generations as a reference,
mm-hmm,
um, I could sort of project them onto a blank character and sort of
mm,
stretch out the face of the character to sort of do that particular thing.
mm-hmm,
And I got really good at it because I had all that experience beforehand where, I was doing the thing. And what Headshot let me do is it sort of gave me um, a broad sort of, this is kind of what your character looks like. And from there it was just like, oh yeah, well that's no problem. I just make her toonier, and I make the eyes bigger,
mm-hmm.
and I do the thing with the thing that makes the other thing work, and it was super easy. And
That's all AI
and
art
that's
is. Huh?
generally.
The thing
Mhm.
and the thing and the other thing, and then it works.
Well, yeah, I mean, if we're gonna bother your audience with technical jargon, absolutely, because the thing is
Hmm.
complicated. Mhm.
Yes, exactly. Awesome.
But it's fun. It's all super super. I'm so sorry about my ridiculous hand
I
extraness
love
right
it.
now.
I love the hand extraness. And yes, I think, Lynn and I when we talk, we tend to get a little technical. So
Mhm.
there will be some technical jargon in this for sure. Because yeah, we don't really want to hold back. We want to go deep into the tech and how it is. So talk after this. The app was called Relusion, right? Relusion. And you were projecting.
Revolution,
Yeah.
yeah, Revolution Character Creator,
Hmm.
and inside Character Creator, we bought the plugin, and the plugin is called Headshot, and
Right.
Headshot lets you sort of the selling point on Headshot, and mind you, it has gotten better,
Hmm.
but the thing with Revolution is that the selling point is that you have this. It tells you that you're taking a 3D image, or a 2D image rather, and converting it into a 3D image, and it sort of kind of does that.
Mm.
It does it in a really sort of vague way that needs a lot of work. So on the one hand, it's using PyTorch vision to do
Hmm.
its thing. But on the other hand, you're still doing kind of a lot of really creative, really manual work.
Mm.
And that was sort of the mindset that I was used to going into the AI stuff. So I was
Hmm.
like, so when I started doing it, I was like, okay, well, my whole deal is pushing these systems as hard as they go,
Mm.
right? Push them as hard as they go, break them until you can't break them anymore, and then move on to the next thing, you
Yeah.
know? By the time we start with our AI and Stable Diffusion last year, I'd already been making models like this, character models, not like trained models. And, character models I've been making because it's like an overlap in the framework and
Hmm.
the difference in terminology. But anyway, so like I'd been making character models like this for well over a year, and like I was at a point where I'm like, yeah, let's just do it. We broke Vroid Studio, we broke DAS, we broke CC4. Now we're gonna break Stable Diffusion. It's gonna be fun.
Yeah.
And this the first thing I do is figure out like, well, we know that Stable Diffusion works on PyTorch the same way character creator does. So that means that like if we're dealing with faces at least, we know that like the limitations of the face are such that we have depth targets. And the depth targets, sort of like it needs the whites of your eyes, for example, or something,
Mm-hmm.
virtually equivalent. And we know that it needs a nose and a mouth to see a face. But we also know that it gets really weird with textures. So what can we do with textures? And that's where I started sort of taking my noise painting technique that I developed for FaceApp of all things,
Mm.
and started like moving it over into like Stable Diffusion. And like you'll notice like that if you look at like some of my early noise paintings, that they were just like dog simple. They were just like, basically like a logographic image with like, smiley face or whatever. uh, and then you would do like sort of a texture to mess up the machine and get the machine to do something really cool.
Yeah.
Now like
So
I
so
had
hold on
started.
before we
Oh
keep
yeah.
going here. I just want to circle back to, kind of this concept of breaking things because I love that.
Mhm.
And what I see a lot of the time is there's this like this attitude out there of like, oh, AI is just copying or it's just like
Right.
it's just based on, you just type in a sentence and you get a picture and there's no creativity involved, right? And this
Right.
concept of breaking things is like going to the very limits of what the machine
Mhm.
learning algorithms are capable of and trying to find ways to get it to output new things. And I think that this is really
Right.
interesting because in the latent space of stable diffusion, there's all these images, there's all these concepts, there's all these learned parameters that it's got, and you're kind of like navigating this space. But Lynn, what you've
Totally.
decided is like, I'm going to the place where there's warnings all over the place that say there be dragons. I'm going to figure out, the weird corners, the niches, the undiscovered places, and really like create something out of it. And I think that's really wonderful. When you first explained this to me, I was like, yes, because from my background, like I use video equipment that's been opened up, rewired by randomly short circuiting things, and then you put switches in it, and then it becomes a new instrument, right? It's like a glitch equipment, video glitch equipment, and the
Mhm.
same like concept of this like breaking things as a creative process. I think is really really awesome, and it helps you learn so much because as you're
Mhm.
learning the AI, you like have to map that space anyways. Like, oh, if I make an image this big, I get an out of RAM error. But it could also be
Right.
like, oh, if I just go under the RAM limit, like what else can I do in that space? And like finding those boundaries and edges can be a really interesting creative process.
Oh, totally. And if you use like DPM as a render
Hmm.
algorithm, and you turn it up to like 65, and you throw in a noise paint and you do some stuff, you're gonna break it. I guess like if we're gonna come up with a term for like the kind of stuff I do, I'm kind of like floating around, really enjoying the term pixel bending,
Yeah,
because that's what you're doing.
yeah,
It's exactly like working with audio.
yeah. Have you heard
And
of data bending? Because I used to love doing
right.
that too. Like where you take an old
Yeah.
CD and then draw on it with a Sharpie
Yeah.
and put it in an old CD player without skip
Yeah.
protection. Yeah, super fun.
Yeah. That's exactly what this is.
Yeah.
And the idea, or like when my first thought was like literally, okay, here's Stable Diffusion. Fuck it, break it. And that's what we started doing. Fundamentally, like my whole process involves like intentionally creating a mismatch between what the system expects to see based on what it's trained on.
I do want
Mhm.
to unpack something that you've talked about. You teased it a little bit, the noise hacking, I want to like
Mhm.
really understand that and like it sounds like it's a very interesting process from what you've told me, and I just want to like maybe we can simplify it down to like the steps so
Yeah,
we
here.
can understand it and like discuss it further.
Okay. Are we seeing all of it? Okay,
I
so
can see
let's
it, yeah.
cool. This is a noise painting that is a little too not like a noise painting. I was experimenting with something. I was drawing
Interesting.
lines in a new way.
Yep,
And
yep.
but yeah, I mean, let's just fuck it, break it, start a new one. Okay, so here's what you do. I like to start with um, no idea. Like, you know, there's this new rule that they just created that says, art has to be intentional, but that has never been true until fairly recently.
uh,
You know,
then
I
you'd
like,
say like nature, like chaos.
right,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
So what we're going to do here is like just sort of a really simple
Okay.
warp composition, and I'm just going to sort of just
Hmm.
put down some lines and just sort of let the automatism go while I have you on the phone here. So um, here we go. So we just take out the warp,
Hmm.
and then we just sort of move them around.
Okay.
We sort of make our
Yeah.
shapes here.
Very nice.
We want to make like tight, sort of line heavy, intricate shapes when we do these.
Ooh, very
Um,
very marbly. I love that. One of my favorite embeddings
yeah.
is marbling art, and this really reminds me of that.
Hmm.
Or a
Yeah.
90s
So like,
90s rave flyer getting made
oh
live.
yeah, absolutely.
Very
Bring
cool.
on the crab claws.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
Interesting.
like sometimes I will like really sit and I'll do like layers of color. So
Mm.
like let's
Hmm.
let's do a couple of layers here. So we have this thing right here where we do our thing. And now we're going to select the paintbrush and now we're going to change our color out where I want some maybe some yellowness. Maybe let's make a flower in the middle, see what
Sure,
happens.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm thinking in general, I'm really just kind of tired of making people.
Yep.
I feel like I've done so many portraits and so many people. I'm having fun with crowd scenes in general. I like those.
Hmm.
But I think for the next few months, you're going to see a lot more still life from me. You're going to see flowers until I'm sick of making flowers. You're going to see like crazy, trippy buildings and stuff like that. A lot of weird kind of symmetrical patterns and stuff like that. And now, what we're going to do here is we're just going to warp it ever so slightly. Because when we're like looking at a logographic form,
Mm.
and what I mean by logographic is that like there are languages, right? When human beings use language,
Hmm.
they take sort of shortcuts for it, and there are entire languages that are built on logographic schemes
Hmm.
where you make sort of like a simple picture of it, like a house. The word or the symbol for house is like obviously a picture of a simple house, whatever a house looks like in that culture, and that would be a logographic representation of the thing which does the thing. And the idea here is that when you're mixing your chaos and essentially your order to make a logographic representation on top of a chaotic pattern of lines, you're going to get the AI to output something nice and chunky. That's the
Ooh,
technical term.
okay, okay. Yeah, I see that
Mhm.
in like the just the prompting syntax a lot, right? Like people would be like
Totally.
object and then modifiers and then, or sub
Mhm.
object and then like the related background information and then the style information. So that makes sense. It's like a lot of the
Oh yeah.
models are trained on things like people or objects or special things that appear because, well, the nature of our language is more to create like things that we talk
Mhm.
about when we're making AI art. We're like, oh, I want to make this thing, so I will prompt that thing. So I can see that what you're talking about with logographic is like this element of a thing over this pure noise in the background. It makes sense.
Right. So yeah, exactly. So what we're talking about is like we're overlaying our a few different layers here.
Hmm.
Um, we've got with our input, we've got our chaotic background, which is not suitably chaotic. So we're going to add some more chaos to it. We are going to put that right over here. I do not care.
Is that Parmesan?
Um,
Are we making a meal here?
no, we're gonna hang on. We're not there yet.
Okay, okay. Interesting.
We're gonna blend it all together.
I feel like I'm
But the
watching
point is,
a Bob Ross painting, like it's gonna, like, no, no, what are you doing? You're making a little tree, but no, wait, you just ruined it. I love that. And
well,
then the magic happens. You're like, oh,
right.
yeah, very cool.
So we're layering our inputs here.
Hmm.
But like I was saying, the beauty of AI is that for like the first time in really human history, you can take your visual inputs and combine them with the spoken or yeah, like literally the spoken word or the written word
Hmm.
um, to create something really novel.
Mm.
And what the system's doing in the background is neat too, because it's not just pulling out, like you tell it a car, right? And then you give it like a picture of a donkey, right?
Hmm.
And what it's trying to do there is match what it understands a car to be with what you're giving it and all that stuff.
Hmm.
And if it doesn't match, you got to remember it's all math, so the equation has to balance somehow
Hmm.
at the end of the day, and um, it will. It always does. So hang on, we're almost there. And what we're going to do here is we're going to take this into RunDiffusion, and I'm going to
Sweet.
do it in a way, hopefully, that doesn't dox myself. Okay, but first, we are going to save this beautiful thing.
I like that just on its own. It's very cool. Now I gotta like pull out that liquefy thing and just start making cool stuff. I'm already
Oh, it's
excited to
so
start
much fun.
creating. It's awesome.
It is so much fun. Okay, hang tight just for a sec. I'm going to save the main one. And now I'm going to save the PNG or the JPEG. Let's make it a JPEG. JPEGs are smaller. We're going to call that illustration 3, and it's all saved. Okay, cool. So now, effectively, we're basically done with Clip Studio.
Hmm.
Um, any program that has like Liquify that works over multiple layers will do the job. Theoretically, even Photoshop will do the job, but Photoshop is Photoshop, and there's
Hmm.
a million little caveats there. So, yep, yep.
Cool. Yeah, I'm really excited about that. I mean, I was using marbling art like all the time. So now I'm just like I got to put my own marbling art source images in.
Oh, totally,
Hmm.
totally. And I have a couple of models actually that I've trained to do interesting things with the particular builds of Stable Diffusion that we run over at RunDiffusion.
Hmm.
And if you like, you can feel free to use or download those if you want to. I have not put them out publicly yet, but I really have been meaning to. So what we're gonna do is cha cha cha. We're gonna load up here. There's our happy little image. So instinctively, you would take a look at this and you would think to yourself, well, that should really be a flower, because she drew a flower and all of that stuff. But let's see. So let's say, what else could it be though? I mean, that's a good question. We could have a flower. We could be looking at like, a surreal landscape. Oh, I got it. Oh, I got it. Here, how about that? How about this? A yellow rose grows in a Mayan temple
There we go.
at the end of time.
Of course.
And now we're going to make it like, let's say we want to use HDRP, which HDRP is a really good 3D setting to use. You just got to remember it's got a ton of biases, especially like around bodies and like, uh, yeah,
Mm.
clothing.
Hmm. Can only imagine.
Lots of stable diffusion biases around clothing and nudity. So you just got
Yeah.
to watch out for that. HDRP, 3D render, cinema, 4D, ambient occlusion,
Oh, I think it's
modern.
cinema has an extra C in there.
Oh yeah, it does, doesn't it? Syncama.
It's like
Okay.
Cinco de Maya 40. Yeah.
It's all good. I find that like sometimes when you misspell things, they actually come out better. It's
Hmm.
funny how that works out. Uh,
Oh yeah, that's an interesting point. I've seen that before for sure. Pop
Pop
surrealism.
surrealism,
Yeah.
sci-fi, cyberpunk, detailed historical fiction.
So,
And I,
yeah, you're hitting all the points in the diffusion model, right? You're just like going around to all the
right,
hot spots, grabbing stuff, bringing it in. It's like it doesn't have to be in one spot. You're like, how many hot spots can I hit in the diffusion model with all this stuff, which is great.
right, and that's a big part of the system is like you got to remember that and you know this, obviously. The new one is built for shorter prompts,
Mm-hmm.
which means that you can short circuit it more easily with long prompts. And end
Mm.
up when you do the long prompt thing in any model that's optimized for short prompts, you end up overloading it and using more memory and pulling in a lot more um, goodness
Mm.
from the engine, shall we
Mm-hmm.
say. So we're going to try this at a few different settings, and you're going to see what happens. So let's see, Stone Temple. 3D NFT is a good keyword that I like a lot.
Really?
Now, yes, and then we do DAS 3D for a negative keyword because DAS, for some reason, DAS is not a bad product and it's actually pretty cool. But for some reason, like as represented in Stable Diffusion, it is not pretty.
Hmm.
So we want to just take that out completely. Now we do ugly. Now we do visual art, ugly, malformed, deformed, um, branded, signature. Because like when we're working with high noise, so a lot of this stuff just sort of happens
Oh.
automatically. And then we do JPEG artifacts.
Mm-hmm.
Now up here we do recontextualized.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, it's a really good one. And found footage is another one of my favorites because it just adds sort of a default chunky fogginess to it, but
Mm-hmm.
foggy, uh, like Daly City on a Sunday day. Anyway, I think that should be about enough. And let's try a couple of them, see what happens.
All right.
Oh, wait, we want it to be the same size. So in this case, we're rendering 900 by 15. Obviously, you can do whatever you like. I like my secondary guidance
Oh, pretty
to be a little
high.
higher.
Pretty
Yeah,
high. Yeah.
generally between 13 and 16.
Now, why do you
Um,
like using that setting? I'm curious.
because it sort of it brings out more of the detail from the prompt when you do it that way.
Hmm. Okay.
And it's like you said, it's sort of black magic, and you got to go with whatever sort of works here.
Oh, so
So
very low denoising. Okay.
we're gonna start at very low denoising, and very high
Ah.
secondary,
Yeah. Okay.
and we're gonna just see what happens, and we're gonna mess with this as we go.
Yeah.
I'm
So let me see if I understand the theory of this. So we've got the two
Mhm.
minutes. You've got all this detailed sort of chaos, this like unusual shaping, and the idea there is to like sort of make the diffusion model sort of hallucinate in a sense. It's like going to start
Right,
picking up on the different shapes in the background and then be like, oh, this is kind of that, this is kind of this, and you'll get this like sort of wild result, this chaotic, artistic, creative, by sort of tricking the stable diffusion to
Mhm.
do something that isn't normal. You're like,
Right.
giving it an excuse to be wild and chaotic like it truly wants to be.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, like so many people are trying to figure out ways to control stable diffusion a little more tightly.
Hmm.
And it's been sort of my experience that it's just more fun if it's a little bit crazy. So
Oh, this is great.
this would be kind of the image
Yeah.
that I was hoping for
Oh, yeah.
here.
beautiful.
you know. Oh yeah, but we could do better, I think.
I think I
Uh,
see where this is going.
Sweet.
So
So we're
are
gonna
you gonna
turn,
send it back?
yes,
Oh, okay, yeah. So and then you increase the denoising. I gotcha.
right. So now we're gonna turn down the secondary and turn the denoise up,
Mm.
and just gonna sort of play and experiment with it. This is sort of an exploratory noise paint. Like if we were trying to like do something serious where like all we want is, the hair texture, for example. If we wanted a really crazy hair texture but a fairly reliable face, we would draw a picture, just a really simple picture of a face, and then we'd like make the hair like out of the same kind of red lines or whatever.
Mm.
um, but I can show you actually, part of the beauty of this process, the noise paints are actually reusable and as different things. And since the equation has to
Mm-hmm.
balance at the end of the process, um, we can describe anything that's mismatched and still have it work. So, like here, we see a flower, right? And
Mm-hmm.
here, we're trying to render a flower. And that's actually pretty cool. I think, like, if I were
Yeah.
seriously trying to get this, oh, I love this. This is
Yeah, look at
perfect.
that. That's funny. I love
Uh,
the little like leaf portal thing there. Yeah. Very
yeah, I'm
cool.
saving that. That is actually exactly, that's almost entirely my creative vision. But what if we wanted to take something, to take this noise paint and repurpose it?
Mm-hmm.
We could do a beautiful woman, or rather, digital art of a beautiful woman in a surrealist city on the edge of time, because edge of time gives you extra bonus points for weirdness.
I love it.
It's a really good keyword, and you will find at this noise setting that we're going to get something that's actually really really neat.
Huh. So I was kind of thinking where you were going to go originally with this was that you were going to generate this flower, but then you were
Mhm.
going to send the flower back to image and then like generate it again. Like I thought you were going to keep revising it in that manner, but the results that you got are fantastic, just as is. Um, but would you like keep going with that process and repeat it, or like how would you continue to refine that image? Would you just say like, this is done? Like what is your process there once you have an image in a noise painting that you're like, okay, I kind of like where this is going?
No problem. So, like, if I'm doing a diorama based piece, what
Hmm.
I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to get like as many different kinds of prompts out of a single image that I possibly can. I'm going to turn it sideways, and I'm going to mess with it. Ooh, look at these.
What? Yeah, love that one.
Yeah,
That's
that's
super cool.
neat.
Okay.
But what this
Last
tells
one's
me
kind of
right
cool
here,
too.
it is, but it tells me my secondary guidance needs to go higher, and I need to give the machine more freedom. So I'm gonna try to put it up to like 5.5,
Yep.
which is, it's a pretty chunky level of noise there, but
Hmm.
we're not eliminating the noise completely, telling it to redraw. We wanted to like do some redrawing, but not a lot. So let's see where it goes.
Yeah. So just over half noise,
Mhm.
right? Like I think that's,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, we're removing like 55% of the noise. So hopefully that should give us right about what we need.
Awesome.
We're not like completely eliminating the noise, and it's weird because sometimes even when you get rid of, like, even when you set it to 1, right,
Hmm.
and you get rid of all of the noise, it still holds your form. And really that's the big thing you're trying to do. You're trying to use your impression to bend your pixels and make your form.
Got it. I always get reversed on denoising because it's so wild to me like that Stable Diffusion was trained backwards where they took pictures and then slowly added more noise to them,
Hmm.
and then they reversed it so that the AI model was like, now that it was backwards, it was taking noise and turning it into pictures, which is all I always thought
Exactly.
was wild. But then when you look at the denoising in the image to image, you're like, oh yeah, like I want to set the denoising higher so it's more of the image. And you think, oh, that's like for me. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm adding in noise, but no, because it's
Right.
backwards. It's very confusing.
I-
And then you get into deforum and it has like a strength parameter, but then when you look in the
right.
console it says it's denoising it. You're like, "Oh, wait, okay, strength is denoising. I get it." It's just sort of a weird concept. Like everything is sort of backwards in this mirror world of stable diffusion, the modeling.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. Oh yeah. It's all totally upside down and backwards, but that's sort of the fun of it, you know.
Yeah,
It's
definitely.
like, so this is my favorite right
Mhm.
here. And like
Mhm.
I feel like if I were doing like a diorama at this point, I have sort of my subject right here, with one of these,
Yep, yeah.
whichever one it is. And then I've got like the rose, which is a good secondary subject or an element. And I think then what I need is just hypothetically, we're going to go back in here and we're going to sort of, and I promise I won't take up the whole runtime doing this, but just
I don't
bear
know.
with
This
me.
is great. I wanted to make sure we had a lot of time to chat because you have a lot of good, um, like just intellect and thoughts on on the way things are going. You have a really unique perspective, and so it's really refreshing to see your process. Like right now, you're just like, oh, I'm just going to turn it sideways, and you've got this like beautiful source that you've created of this
Uh-huh.
chaos. Um, and yeah, I love it. So when you say you're gonna make like a um, diorama or collage with this, like
Uh-huh.
you would sort of would you photo bash them together in an external program? What would you how would you do that?
Okay. So what I'm going to do, or what I do really is I just sort of experiment with different prompts on my layouts.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually we get to a point where like the original image I created doesn't really matter at all,
Mm-hmm.
except to tie the whole thing together. The reason why we keep using the original image is because structurally, I mean, you might see this one, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or, if we looked at this other image we just created, that one right there.
Yeah.
So if we look at that one, or we look at that one, structurally these sort of have this kind of the same rhythm
Mm-hmm.
to them. And what you want to, and what that lets you do is it lets you sort of flip flip each image or turn it sideways or whatever. But the cool thing about it is that like you could take those two in the context of a larger thing that was made in sort of the same structure that we're using,
Mm-hmm.
and um, they melt together more easily that way, I find.
Mm.
So now what I'm doing is I'm turning it up to 16. I'm turning my thing all the way up to 6.9. Oops, no, 6.9
Do you need to
there.
change the height and width? Probably.
Yeah, I'm gonna flip them.
There you
So
go. All right.
now what I'm gonna do is generate some stuff there.
Yeah.
I think about every piece while I'm making them, and this one's like we're aiming for like buildings like cathedral, like
Mm.
we're thinking, Gothic cathedrals, we're thinking, you know, but anyway, it's going to generate some really cool stuff right here. There we go. See what it did?
Whoa.
Yeah. And now I've got these pieces and I can glue them all together with generative fill in Photoshop. And structurally, we're still looking at stuff. Oh, we're looking at some prompt memory. Nice from the last session. But
Hmm.
we're looking at some stuff that is going to come together really well. And
Wow,
when I
yeah.
actually,
Yeah, I love the first one. I mean, there's just some beautiful stuff here. It's
oh
really
yeah,
incredible. Yeah.
totally. And here we actually want to sort of we went through, we intentionally created our mismatch. Now we're getting mismatched images, which are essentially random, but very, very structurally concise that meet our spec. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to make 10 of them.
Hmm. All right.
And I'm not gonna like walk you through the process where I do like gluing them all together, and but yeah, just in general, I mean that's sort of, oh shit, hang on, it's just you lose the effect when the preview thing
I
isn't doing the
know. Yeah.
preview
We need
thing.
those previews.
I know. It's like it's part of the dramatic tension of the whole thing, you know.
I also love in Stable Diffusion when you have the previews on and it like looks like it's going to be amazing, and then because of all the LoRa's and
Uh-huh.
stuff you added in right at the last second, it like just like smushes down to something really normal and
Oh,
basic.
it's so frustrating.
You're like, you had it, you
It
stumbled,
was
fumbled at the
right
last minute.
there. It's like I was talking about earlier, how sometimes when you turn on DPM at like 65 rounds, it just totally like burns what you're doing. But I have figured out how to like use that and use the burn actually
Hmm.
to do some really pretty cool stuff, I think.
This looks awesome.
Oh, it's going to be great.
So,
And you know,
yeah, go ahead.
yeah, sorry. So like something else, while this is all rendering, um, we have the interrogator service,
Hmm.
and you were running Vlad, which actually implements this exact thing.
Hmm.
But Vlad is big and confusing, and I'm not sure if it's still running. So what I'm going to do is pull out something elaborate from my back catalog, like that. How about that? Come
Yeah, we'd
on.
love to. I'd love to see some of your work. That would be great.
Oh yeah, no problem.
Pop it up on here. It would be great to like kind of go through a little bit of what
You've
you've
seen
created.
you've seen pretty much all of it. Um, all right. So yeah, no problem. We could go. I have a website. It's called lyncole.art,
Hmm.
and it's a fun little place.
Oh
This
yeah,
one
great.
is you get to see like bunches of my artwork on the homepage, which is always fun.
Hmm.
This is the piece we're looking at right now
Awesome.
on the interrogator,
Hmm.
and I'm gonna try to like capture some of that. This is Empress 2. She's a re-render of an earlier piece I did.
Hmm. Oh, fun. Yeah, I remember this one. This is a great piece.
Mhm.
Yeah, when you were training the
Oh
model,
yeah.
right? It just sort of like popped out a little unexpected, I think.
Parts of it did. So I got like a bunch of unexpected pieces out of it.
Hmm.
And then what I did was I put them all together in a collage, and that's
Ah,
sort
right.
of where I ended up on that one.
Yeah, cool. Oh, that's great.
Yeah. This
Super
is one of
fun.
my favorite pieces that I
Yeah,
ever did.
that's wild.
And this is another one.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm seeing the collage come through. Yeah, this is the process, seeing the process and then seeing the end result. I'm like, oh, okay, it's starting to click now. I'm understanding kind of what you do.
Right.
It's awesome.
Yeah, these are some older ones. Hang on. Let's look at some newer ones. Here's 884. This is a lot of noise paintings and a lot of revision to noise paintings.
Oh yeah, gorgeous.
Someone told me once that like my noise paintings, they don't get it because they just look like really unappealing art. But
Hmm.
the thing you got to remember about noise paintings is that, um, yes, I'm borrowing a historic term that has meaning. Yes, the work I call noise paintings does technically qualify as historic noise paintings under the same sort of guise, right? But for me, a noise paint is really only the starting point in a process. Like if you look at this particular noise paint here, right,
Hmm.
that turned into that.
Wow. Yeah. Awesome. Huh.
Yeah, and you know it's like totally a different world, and it's fun because like I get to go back and like sort of rethink and
Mm. Hmm.
recontextualize and do fun things with the noise paintings. And yeah, I guess you could say in very, very strict technical terms, like this piece right here that we're looking at, that started with a noise painting, and that is still a noise painting
Hmm.
at the
Hmm.
end of the day. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's just sort of, the way I work, I think.